Afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our Signworld webinar today. We appreciate you being here. My name is Jeannie Borum, and I am part of the corporate team here at Signworld, and I will be moderating our session. For those of you who may not have attended one of our webinars previously or watched a recorded one, just a really quick overview of what the format for our session will be today. First, we're going to have each of our current owners who are on our panel introduce themselves, give a better understanding of themselves, where they're located, a little bit about their business, as well as their backgrounds. And then the fun happens where we turn the floor over to our participants. And when we call your name, we're going to ask you to take yourself off of mute and go ahead with an individual question. We do ask you to keep it to just one at a time. If time permits, we'll go around for some additional questions, but I do see about 8 or 9 already logged in. So you might only have the chance to ask one question, but my guess is the other questions that will be asked might be other things you're thinking about asking as well. So with that said, let's go ahead and have our owners introduce themselves to you first. Matt, can we start with you?
Yeah, definitely. I'm Matt Stein. I'm the owner of Signscapes. We are located in Southfield, Michigan, which is about 15 minutes north of the city of Detroit. We are into our 4th year of business. I have a 3,000 square foot industrial facility that we work out of. The business has 3 full-time employees right now, plus myself. 2023 sales projection right now is at $750,000. The largest project we've done to date has been actually a parking garage, about an 8-story parking garage in downtown Detroit, where we produced and installed all the signs for them. So that was a fun one, especially considering my background. I grew up in the parking industry. My family was involved in that in Detroit, but most recently in my career, I was actually coming out of the wireless industry.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your overview and being here today, Matt. We appreciate it. Let's go to you next, Kurt.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kurt Hilliard. I own a company called Viscom Signage Group. We also have a secondary brand, Black Parrot Signs, that we had bought about 4 years ago as I came into the industry. I am a marketer by background. I spent my corporate years in some pretty big companies as chief marketing officer and doing some other project work like that. Been in business, like I mentioned, 4 years ago, 2019, right before COVID kind of broke out. So it was a kind of interesting time to get into the business. We are in Northern Orange County, California. So we operate anywhere from San Diego all the way up to Los Angeles and inland. That's where we travel, where our customers take us, but that's our primary area. We are in about a 1,400 or 1,500 square foot facility. Our model is very different. We're a broker model. We do very little fabrication in-house. In fact, we don't have anything other than the original equipment, which is going to sound very different to perhaps than other owners who have bought lasers and routers and other fancy things like paint booths. But we have an outstanding group of fabricators and installers who help us create the projects that ultimately we design. So we're very design centric, very design heavy, and then we find the right fabricator and installer to execute the project. We'll do about $1.2 million this year, and we have 3 full-time employees, and then a whole bunch of fabricators and installers that fit in with that model. Our business is, again, quite different. We don't do any vehicles. We don't really do any wraps. We're primarily focused on exterior and interior projects for commercial Class A office spaces and retailers. Our average transaction is about $4,000 because of the higher end exterior blend of business that we do. So we also do a lot of contractor business as well. So working on ADA signs and so forth. So I'm sure I'll answer some questions as we go, but that's our model.
Very good. Thank you, Kurt. And then we'll go to our final owner, Fabio. Thanks for joining us today. Please give an introduction.
My pleasure. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fabio Ciabra. I'm owner of SSK Signs. We are located in the GTA and the Toronto area in Canada. We are going to our 10th year. Our projection sales is going to be 1.5 million. We have 6 people in our team. We do lots of fabrication. We'll keep adding, so that's a good thing. Different models, but great results for everybody. The biggest job we have we have done a couple around the $200,000. one that we're working right now. We are doing the signage. It's going to be about 50 signs for an entire food court on the Eaton Center, which is one of the main malls in Toronto. Oh,
Wonderful. And what was
just quickly, my background, I've been in the injection molding business for about 20 years, and like a industrial engineer by education, and that's it.
wonderful, wonderful. Well, thanks for the introductions, owners. We appreciate that. So now the fun starts, where we're going to go around to our participants to ask your questions for the owners to answer. Again, I ask you to keep it to one question at a time, and we'll work through them as quickly as possible. And I will call you by name to ask you to come off of mute and share where you're from. So I'm going to give you the order that you logged in at. Riza, you were the first one to join us today. Please take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're located, and go ahead with the question for today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Reza. I'm based in Virginia, Northern Virginia, near Washington, D.C. metro area. And my question is that in the first year that you started the business, what was the challenges that you faced? And would you have done, considering the experience that you have, is there anything that you would have done differently now if you were to start again? Appreciate that.
Great question. Great question to kick it off with. Love it. All right, let's start with the oldest owner first. Fabio, when you started the business, what was your biggest challenge, and what would you do differently to overcome it today, if anything different?
I think the biggest challenge is getting orders. We started in February, not the best time, like winter time in Canada can be very cold, so it limits your offering. We did a lot of cold calls and some referrals and BNI. If I would, so I think to get things going, it requires some resilience. You cannot give up just because things are tough. Like that happens, you gotta keep pushing. If I do something different, I think I would jump on the CEO and the marketing side right away. It took us, we did a lot of things internally. We are not marketing specialists. So I think we lost about 6 months guessing and trying. So start off the bat with a nice website, with a real nice marketing campaign, and chances are you're going to start seeing orders on the next month.
Very good. Yeah, starting a business 10 years ago, we didn't have the advantage of internet marketing back then that we do today. So definitely understand that one. All right, Kurt, how about you? Biggest challenge you faced, and would you do anything different?
Well, I think Fabio stole all my thunder, because I'm coming at this from the world of marketing, right? Whole background. So I would echo what he said. Thank you, Fabio, for that. Excellent. Although I am wearing these super cool headphones and you're not. So I got that going. No, I think he's onto something, right? So I came in at the end of 2019. I did acquire another company and tucked it in. So I had a few customers coming through there. Many of them not interesting, by the way. They weren't priced well and weren't the kind of businesses that wasn't the kind of business I knew we wanted to do, but it had an advantage if I had somebody to talk to. And then we ran into COVID like 5 months later. So it was a really rocky time, but lending back to my experience, it's all about marketing, right? It's all about getting your name out there. And I think there is a human nature as well as a business nature to go conservatively as you're starting up a business and thinking about your cash flow, of carefully stepping into the market, trying to identify who you are, what you do, and why you're better than everybody else, and how do you test pricing and all that stuff. I think the best thing you could do, and I would do again, although I do it faster, is I would step up the marketing activity, be willing to take courageous steps towards identifying why you are unique and different in the marketplace. Great website, of course, but you need to be active in pay-per-click. You need to get working immediately in organic search. So you need a web partner who will help you do that. You cannot do that in-house. even with my background, I couldn't take those types of steps to do it myself. So hiring somebody competent to provide you that backbone, be willing to spend more than you're comfortable with in those earliest days. So reserving some extra dollars for that is a really important foundation for you to quickly get out of the gates. Your networking alone will not work. You can't go to enough of the tip groups to make that happen. You need to actually spend the money in pay-per-click. And that would be my recommendation. And I have since done that and kept our spends very high. Even though a lot of our business comes through referral, I still count on that business to help us grow. So.
Very good. Thank you, Kurt.
Yep.
Matt, how about you? Biggest challenge? Would you do anything different?
Yeah, I hate to sound like a broken record, but we also launched the business in March of 2020, right before a global pandemic. So yeah, marketing, networking, get your name out there. You need orders and revenue to help drive the ship at the beginning. And it's tough because you're starting from scratch. But I would say, you know, going back, as soon as I made the decision to go into Signworld, I would have started notifying my network, getting all the digital assets together, get the website launched. It takes a little bit of time to build all that stuff up online. So the sooner you start, the better. And then just getting out and meeting people. I wasn't really afforded that luxury because everybody was social distancing and working from home. But I mean, the more I get out and network and meet with people in person, explain what we do, explain why we're different, it really helps drive and grow the business.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. All right, let's go to our next guest. Brian, if you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from today and go ahead with the question.
Hi, my name is Brian. I'm calling from the Boston area, and I just want to thank everyone here for giving up precious time around the holidays to help out a group of people you've never met before. Very appreciative of your time. I just wanted to ask, you know, how you thought about competition, if you can think, you know, it's been a while since you you started your businesses. Sounds like a couple 4s and a 10. So like try and roll back to a point in time when you were just starting. How did you think about competition? How did you measure it? How did you get comfortable that you could out deliver what's already in the market? And how you got comfortable with it. You know, was it just a perspective that you could outwork people? Did you have something up your sleeve you could deliver that was truly differentiated? And I guess to wrap it up, how did you think about competition, and how did you not let that, you know, intimidate you, you know, to fold before you started? Thank you.
Very good question, Brian. Thanks for asking that one. Let's start with you first, Matt.
Yeah, well, on the recommendation of Signworld, I actually, before I got started, called 10 sign companies in the Metro Detroit area, which is only a small fraction. I mean, there's a ton of sign companies around me. And I was somewhat shocked in the level of response that I got, which was not very high. So it sort of opened my eyes. And I think, you know, there's lots of companies that we compete with in the Metro Detroit area. There's a lot of very good sign companies. There's a lot of mom and pop shops that I don't think that we compete with. They don't have a strong online presence. They're not project focused. They're not customer service focused. So, you know, I feel like we, even in just 4 short years, we play with some of the big boys in town. That being said, there's a lot of business to go around, and we don't often, I mean, while we do compete, you know, we don't lose a lot of sleep over the ones that we don't win, because we know that there's several more coming down the pipeline that we're going to get opportunities on. So, you know, we keep them close. I actually work very closely with a couple of the bigger sign companies in Detroit. They've done, you know, some work on our behalf, and they've been like mentors to me. So it's actually been some friendly co-opetition amongst some of the bigger players around here.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. How about you, Fabio?
Well, yeah, as Matt mentioned, like Signworld said, you know what, walk around, find your competitors in your area. So I spent my first week driving around, finding sign companies and checking them, see how they're structured, what's the area like. Just when my industry before, everything was in pristine. It was metal making, but like was super clean. It was a different, we were set us apart, so we have a different view of manufacturing. And one thing that I said was key is customer service. People really don't care. They go there, they answer the phone, they send the quote, that's it. Many Signworlds, you're gonna hear it, the faster you answer, the more likely you're gonna get the order. So you gotta structure yourself to answer the phone promptly, be there, you know, go after solutions. Signworld offers a big hub of information, so you are never alone. And this market is super fragmented. Like in the province of Ontario, we got 1,700 sign makers. So chances to get like a competitor that's gonna make your life tough, I don't think you're gonna find it. It's just you like putting together your best effort and your best customer relationship. And you will succeed. That's it.
Sorry, go ahead. Very good.
No,
Thank you, Fabio.
That's basically it.
Very good. All right, Kurt, how about you?
One of these days I'm going to go first so they stop stealing my stuff. So Matt, Fabio, yeah, so here's the best news of all. You know, again, as coming from a marketer's background, the traditional prism of marketing is product, price, placement, promotion, permission, right? It's the 5 P's of marketing. And while those play a small role in the signage industry, it's actually your people, the last P, which will make the difference. So it's how quickly you engage a client on email, on a formal lead coming in, how quickly you answer the phone call, the kinds of questions you ask. You're asking them for their art, you're asking for their vision statement. Do you have examples of something that you're trying to replicate? That value proposition is the people you hire or yourself in those earliest days and the level of design services that you're willing to commit to. So in our world, Viscom Signage Group is very design heavy. I don't compete on price. And as a matter of fact, if the customer says, hey, I'm getting multiple quotes, I will stop them in the middle of that inquiry with us, and I will tell them the truth. And the truth is, if price is your primary prism you're looking through, I'm not your provider. You might choose to go to another company X or Y or Staples or FedEx to get that particular service because we're not a good fit for you. If you want it done right, we're a 5-star provider. In Yelp and Google, you can see our reviews online, and that requires us to have an appropriate infrastructure and have the right product mix and making sure that we really pay attention to customers' needs all the way through the installation. So therefore, we can't charge the least amount of money in the marketplace. And you'll be surprised how many people will stop and go, oh, you know what, price is, it's kind of important. I'd rather have it done right. And so we can salvage a lot of those opportunities. So I think there is a tremendous opportunity in this industry to position you strategically and get the right people on board who share your vision. Yes, you have to have a product competency, and yes, you need to be somewhat price sensitive. You can't charge triple what everyone else does, but you can literally separate yourself from the pack through other means of marketing versus the product, the price, the placement, the promotion that kind of go into the mix in a traditional business.
Great. Thank you for that, Kurt. Appreciate it. All right, let's go to our next guest. We have 2 Chris's on the line. So Chris Purdue, if you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from and go ahead with the question.
Hey, good afternoon. Sure. I'm from the DC metro area, and I guess hopefully maybe a slightly more straightforward question. How from the time that you all started respectively to now, what was, if you could put a number on it, what's the amount of time that you've spent every week in the business?
Ooh, every week since they started. That could grow to be a big number. Let's we're gonna refrain.
No, just weekly. Yeah, like no, like weekly. Like you started, you were spending, 60 hours a week. Now you spend 40. That's all I'm looking for.
Very good. Thank you for reframing that. We appreciate it. All right, Kurt, we're gonna start with you this time. What did you start with, and where are you at today?
I wouldn't say it's materially different, right? I probably spend 50 to 60 hours on my business because I'm that type of person. I'm not looking to do something else on the side. So I'm fully committed to our growth plan. And that's how I've been able to attain continuous growth through the 4 years that I've owned the business and have aspirations to continue to grow it. I also believe that leadership is really important in this business. This is enough hands-on, and each client project is so unique and different that you really can't sort of just depend on other people to fully step in. Perhaps someday that will be an opportunity for us, but I'm probably about the same number of hours, and it's by choice, and it's all to get us to our goals.
Very good. How about you, Fabio?
I think I go along what Kurt said. It's I've been keeping pretty much the same amount. What I noticed is as you start growing, you start working more, because until you hire another person and have it on board and up to speed, it takes some time. So once you start spending more hours in the business, it's time to get somebody to help you, and off we go. So it goes a little bit of up and down, and you got to keep an eye to balance everything. Sometimes you get excited. Every time I go to the mall with my wife now, I'm looking at the signs and she's looking for the windows. So I don't mind. I always see something interesting, a new way of putting signs up. So we're finding common interest in going to the mall.
Well, that's good. At least you're spending time together. So just to confirm, you said 50 to 60 like Kurt, just making sure we heard that.
Yeah, about that.
Okay, very good. How about you, Matt? What was it like when you first started, and is it the same today?
Yeah, it is. Same hours as Kurt and Fabio, about 50 to 60 hours a week. There is some ebb and flow in the beginning as you're getting things started. So, the benefit of being the owner is you can make your own hours. If you've got a soccer game after school that you want to go to, I mean, I would dip out for those sometimes and maybe come back later at night to try to get some more work done if need be. But the flexibility has been great. It is a lot of work at the beginning, starting a business, it takes some time, and, you got to invest that to get things running, but it's great to have the flexibility. The type of work varies a little bit. As Fabio mentioned, sometimes you get pulled down into the weeds until you can get some support staff to help kind of elevate you back to that, owner operator level. But yeah, about 50 to 60 has been pretty consistent for me.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to our next guest. David, if you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from, and go ahead with the question.
Hi, guys, and thank you for your time today. I'm from New Jersey, northern New Jersey, kind of right outside New York City. And my question is what is your revenue and profit margins look like? And is there any one aspect of the business that you make a lot more profit on, or you would suggest starting with hardcore to get sales ramped faster?
All right, great question. Fabio, let's start with you first. Revenue, profits, and most profitable projects that you might recommend an owner focus on to start with.
One thing that we noticed that everything that is manufactured inside, it gives us the biggest profit. So you start with the basic package, which is the printer and the graph tag and the laminator. So any print job, interesting that a lot of wall mirrors are getting very, very trendy, if you will. So I love those projects. We made a ton of money, about 80% gross margins on those. So really, really profitable. We just bought a flatbed, which also turned out to be a fantastic investment, because we use a lot of substrate. So before we have to print and then apply on the substrate, now we print directly on the substrate. It is great. So whatever you can do in-house, there's no comparison of outsourcing, at least in our case. And mind you, we sell a ton. Like I would say that 40% of our business is channel letters. We sell a lot of them. We are always debating should we do inside, but then we don't have the knowledge, all the structure to put the channel letters manufacturing in-house. I still buy them. I managed to have a good supplier that allows me to put pretty decent gross margin on it, and off we go.
What is your gross margin on your channel letter projects, if you don't mind?
It all depends. Anywhere from 50%, so times 2, to 1.3. So
okay, very good.
Yeah,
Matt, let's go to you next.
Yeah, so we're going to do 750,000 this year. We've been pretty consistent with our net margin being right around 25% each year. The best projects for us, I mean, when we started, we took everything. Anybody that called was a potential customer that we wanted to work with. as long as we could make money and get some experience under our belt. I think in doing that, we learn, much like Fabio said, anything you can produce in-house, anytime we're printing and installing vinyl, whether it be on trucks, walls, we do a lot of dispensary work for cannabis companies. It's 80-90% net margin to us, or gross margin to us on those projects when we're printing and installing in-house. We don't have any in-house fabrication capabilities, so we don't produce channel letters, we don't do monuments, we do a lot of outsource work on that. And our margins on that work is lower. It's anywhere from, on the very low end, like 40%, typically somewhere in the 50 to 60% range for those outdoor electrical projects.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. And then to Kurt, who does a lot of outsourcing. Talk to us a little bit about your revenue margins and recommendation on project types that are most profitable.
Yeah, so I went back and took a look at last year, because I think last year is also indicative of where we're going to try to take things in 2024. And there are some things I want to do to sort of tune up pricing and make some margin improvements. But again, 9/10 of what we do is outsourced. So we have to be cognizant of what, who, and how those projects get executed. Our margins could be as high as 70% on some of the interior murals that Fabio talked about. Those are great projects if you can get them through creative designers and industrial designers. Very, very trendy, very profitable, and you can do those in-house. Lobby signs, we do a ton of them, probably anywhere between 8 and 10 projects a month. Those will be in the 40 to 50-ish range. We do ADA signage through our builder contractor partners, and those can be 60 to 70% gross margins. And then we do, in any given month, probably 7 to 10 illuminated channel letter projects, and those are going to be in the high 30s. Our market is a little bit more competitive for that. And while I told you earlier that you don't need to be as tuned into price, that's probably the one category that you really need to figure out how to win in the respective market where you are. And so margins on your gross margins on channel letter jobs, because they're big ticket, adds up quickly. You need to be cautious of where you price. So we find we're kind of in that high 30s. Going into 2024, our goal will be to be kind of where we're at, 46, 47% gross margin. I would like to get that to 50. And then net margins, I'm not smart enough like Matt to actually know what all that really means. My accountant knows it. But somehow, you sift through your overhead and all that stuff, but you can be very profitable at, that sort of $600 to $1 million range if you get your margins right and you get your staffing right. So, but I guess the point of all that is that your blended margin is what you're really focused on. Some product mixes you'll be very high on, and some you're going to have to be a little bit lower on, but your blended overall margin should be right around that 50% mark, in my humble opinion. So.
Very, very good. Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate that. All right, let's go to our next guest. Hong, if you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from, and go ahead with the question today.
Thanks, Jeannie. Hi, Hong Wong here. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, currently exploring this opportunity with Jeannie. Thanks for taking the time. My question is, based on the sort of the initial intro from everybody here, sounds like you all had a pretty decent job before you started the signage business. So my question is, what was so appealing for you guys to get into the signage business? And second, why you decided to work with Signworld? I assume that it's got to be very attractive for you guys to sort of give up what you had before. So I want to get some insight on that.
Very good. All right, let's start with you first, Kurt. Why the sign industry and why Signworld?
Yeah, good question. So my background, again, was chief marketing officer for some really big brands. And I was on the road 48 weeks a year for 16 years. And in fact, I commuted to my home office across the country for about the last 10 of that. So it was terrible. And I was missing a lot of family time. So when I started thinking about what does, phase 3 of my career look like, I thought about consulting. I did a little bit of that for about 1.5 years and thought it was interesting. But then I was commuting to Europe for these projects. So it was just even worse, right? So I thought, what can I do close to home, allow me the time and the flexibility to be around my family and as they were growing and maturing, and I didn't want to lose those valuable years. So I started looking at franchise concepts. And I really didn't, I looked at the mix of things. I just didn't think many of them were that intriguing. And then I bumped into Signworld through a business broker and ended up having a conversation. I really sat back and I thought about it. This is the oldest form of marketing there is. a sign on a building, or, you know, it goes back to biblical days, right? You think about blacksmith, if you will, right? But the point of it is that it is an old form. I could bring my expertise into this industry full of moms and pops. Really, there's not a lot of major players in this space. Yes, there's fast signs, but they cater to a very narrow section of the marketplace. They don't do the things I knew I wanted to do. So the more research and the more conversation I started to have, and then I tested the value proposition with some of my, you know, compatriots from my career and background and so forth. And they said, hey, it seems to be a really good fit. Signworld, I think, has a very unique model in that it's not a franchise. It's a consortium of really smart people who have been in the industry for a long time, sharing best practices. And I went through discovery days just like you did a couple of times, because I needed to be here at multiple times, but there's a huge amount of value in the network's knowledge and a willingness to share. And I found that really interesting. So the long answer to your short question was, I found it aligns with my background, low competition level, right? Yes, there are some national companies, but very little competition with them. Talked to a lot of Signworld owners who validated all that and were willing to share their, you know, their basis of their knowledge and so forth. I found that a really kind of a nice mix.
Very good. Thank you, Kurt. Fabio, how about you? Why the sign industry and why Signworld?
Right. So my story is a little bit different. I'm originally from Brazil. I moved to Canada, looked for a job, couldn't find it, decided to buy my job. I just came from a very bitter experience setting up a business. I opened a food business in São Paulo, Brazil. Lost a ton of money, big ton of money. So when I decided to look for a job or to buy a job, I didn't want to start anything from scratch. And I'm not very crazy about franchises. So when they introduced me the sign, I really loved it. The idea, I always liked signage or decals or all this kind of stuff, and I really liked it, the model of Signworld, which is they give you a recipe and you do whatever you want with it. You can decide to fabricate cakes, or you do signs or whatever. You put your name that you wanted. So you baptize, it's your own child. So you nurture and you grow and all the good stuff. So I really didn't check too much. I didn't make too many questions. I was not as diligent as Kurt was. I happened to met a Signworld owner that worked with me before at Husky, and we kind of partner, and then we decided to split 3 years ago, and that's pretty much the story, and never been happier.
Very good. Thank you, Fabio. Matt?
Yeah, so I come from a similar background as Kurt in the marketing world, where I was working with other businesses to help them grow. We did that digitally as opposed to in the signage world, but that's one of the reasons I got into this, is working B2B, working with other businesses, working with brand owners, working with owners to help grow their businesses through signage. And to do that on a local level was just really attractive for me. Of course, all the other stuff that you've heard too. I wanted to get back. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Wanted to get back into business for myself, wanted to be in control of my own destiny. And in doing my research and talking to the Signworld folks and just looking around town, I mean, there's signs everywhere. You kind of don't even realize it until you start considering this career path. But even things that I wouldn't even consider to be a sign is something that we can make and we can do, which was pretty cool for me. On the why Signworld question, you know, I got this question a lot, even when I was going through the process, like, hey, why don't you just go do this on your own? I definitely wouldn't recommend that. I think the support that I got from the Signworld corporate team in getting started through the training, the discovery days, as Kurt mentioned, and just the support of all the owners that are in the network that have done this before and can help guide and are willing to guide a brand new owner that lives in some cases all the way across the country that they've never met. That coupled with, it's not a franchise model. Again, I've been an entrepreneur my life. I like to kind of run my own ship. So not having to live up to any rules, not have any franchise fees, to kind of be able to work within that recipe that Fabio mentioned, but to kind of customize it to my own liking was all very attractive for me.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. Sheree, can you go ahead and start the slideshow in the background for us?
Yep. I will get those going. These slideshows actually don't have any audio, so we'll continue with questions here. There's one that shows some unique projects, which is on our wall of fame in the corporate office. And then another is what is a sign? So it's all the different unique signage that you can put on floors, windows, walls, cars. You'll see in that slideshow. And then another one is an introduction of a few of our Signworld owners and where they're located. So I'll get that pulled up, and Jeannie, you can continue with questions.
Very good. Thank you, Sheree. All right, let's go to our next guest. Martin, if you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from, and go ahead with a question.
Will do. Thank you. So I'm located in the Southampton Roads sub-region in Virginia. And I heard quite a bit about collaboration, especially when it comes to the mentorship and mentoring. Now, my question is, since Kurt does a lot of outsourcing, also collaboration on doing that outsourcing or the operation of the outsourcing internally, meaning with other Signworld owners.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. So go ahead, Kurt. You can start
Well,
first.
is the question, do we use other Signworld partners to fabricate and, for instance, install? Is that what your question is?
Yes, I mean, that's for me, that would be, of course, ideal for Signworld. But of course,
Yeah.
if you can't do that, then you will go somewhere else, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So it's an interesting question, by the way. You might find in your unique market that that's possible. What you need is a Signworld partner who is also a wholesale partner as opposed to traditional retail. So the fabricators that I use are wholesale only, right? They don't actually go to market directly. So I would never see them on a project quote. I mean, they either bend metal, or they fabricate monument signs, or they are installers who take materials out to sites and install them. So I don't think you're going to run into a whole bunch of those in the Signworld organization, but it might be worth checking out with the Signworld team. The other thing I could mention, though, is that I get tremendous value still out of my mastermind group. We meet every week. It's a group from all over the country. There's, I think, 7 or 8 of us now. It's kind of thinned down over the last couple of years, but I get a lot of value out of that. And that's where we bounce ideas off of each other. There will be typically a theme or a key question we're trying to share together. And that's where you'll end up picking up tips on, hey, I just ran into this fabricator that made ADA signs out of Florida. And I'm like, great, what's the name? And we'll write it down and we'll start the investigation. So occasionally you might pick up something like that. But the mastermind groups offer a lot of value on an ongoing basis. That's worth
Hey, Kurt, just to add to the question, I think where Martin might be going towards is when you have a project for a customer that might not be in your geography, do you leverage other Signworld owners in other markets to help you and your business and vice versa?
Yeah, I've only done that a couple of times where we've asked a Signworld owner in Las Vegas, and there's one in the Phoenix metro area that we needed some installation help on, and we didn't want to drive for it. That's just too much. It's a 4 or 6 hour drive, and we just didn't think the economics of that made sense. So we have used that in the past for installation on a couple occasions, but it's not a typical thing that we do.
So you do more locally. Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Yep.
Fabio, how about you? How much are you collaborating with other owners? Do you partner with them on projects, etc.?
We collaborate quite a bit. We supply through all North America. We from Halifax to Vancouver and down to Florida. We got a couple customers. One of them being DHL Global Forwarding. We have done about 10 projects, most of them with Signworld owners, the biggest being in Torrance, California. I worked with Harvey. He pretty much carried the whole project there. I did the PR and a bit of project management, but it was great. Like everything went really well. Customer was super happy. We had a little issue with one of the signs about 6 months later. Harvey went there and fixed it. So absolutely no problem. So I can't complain. Like most of the Signworld that we worked with, they were really helpful, fair, great partners. I could just say there's extension of our company. Really good.
Very good. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, two examples. When we were in month 2 or 3, my brother was rebranding their office, and we got a huge project to do all the interior work for their office. I actually partnered with, it was way beyond our capabilities at the time. So I actually partnered with a local Signworld company, that guy right there, actually, from Signs and More, who was phenomenal. I mean, they let me walk hand in hand through this whole project with them and just showed me so much of how to tackle a difficult, I mean, this had several different components to it. It was wonderful to be able to partner with them, being a new guy and partnering up with, somebody who's been at it for 20 years. And the knowledge gained, I think, is second to none. The other thing I'll say is one of my biggest customers, and the reason I landed them is because of the nationwide reach I had through Signworld. So they own manufactured home communities across the country. I'm working with Signworld vendors on a weekly basis, Signworld partners, I should say, other owners in local markets on a weekly basis to install signs for us. And it was a huge value add for me to go into this marketing guy and say, look, because he was managing all these projects across the country, I can take all of this for you and get it done through a trusted network of reliable sign partners. Having worked in the sign industry for a while, he knew that was like a golden egg. So he jumped at it, and they've become one of my biggest customers.
Yeah, it's a huge value proposition for sure. Thanks for sharing, Matt. All right, let's go to our next guest. The second Chris, I think that's a different attendee. I don't know what your last name is, but if you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from, and go ahead with the question.
Hello, good afternoon, Chris Jackson. And just following up on a question I had about employees and support staff, and how many and how the ramp up worked for each location, for each of the 3 owners here, how the ramp up worked with employees and maybe time frame on that as well.
Very good, great question. Let's go ahead and start with you first, Fabio. How many employees do you have today? How did you ramp up your business, etc.? What do you have to share about your?
That's one thing we learned from Signworld is that your first hire got to be somebody who's gonna do pretty much everything. You got to understand about printing, must understand about signage. So make sure you spend time to interview and select and pay accordingly, because you want him on your side for a long period of time. Not necessarily it's going to be forever, but you need to have somebody to rely on. As of the ramp up, it is just a matter of see how the business are growing. Once you start really getting the water just touching here, you say it's time to get somebody. If you can avoid to get to this point, is better. But it is a lot of feeling. If you do a lot of in-house job, then you need to hire faster. If you can outsource, then maybe you don't need. It's each situation is different, but at the moment we have 6. I'm looking for I hired and fired it within 3 months. The person didn't work, so that's one thing. Like after 9 years, you start realizing if it's going to work or not. So by the end of the probationary period, you made up already your mind, and you know if it's going to work or not.
Very good. All right, let's go to Kurt with the largely outsourced model. I think you said 1.2 million, and how many employees today?
3.
4?
3. Well, technically 3.5, but really we're so design heavy that the 2 primary internal employees spend a huge amount of their time on designing projects, talking to clients, working with their art, showing renderings. My role here is obviously to greet the largest clients. So we do all the exterior work. I personally go and engage myself. I want to make sure that I start each of those projects correctly, bring that information back, get their vectored artwork, and then start the process of sort of collaborating with the client on meeting their vision for what they want their project to look like. And so we do a lot of rendering work. We do that also for lobby signs and wall murals and so forth, but we're about 60% exterior work. And so it requires a bit of hand holding along the way. And that's why we win, by the way. And that's why we're able to charge higher margins than perhaps others that don't have that value proposition. They'll stumble through the process. We won't. So that's really worked well for us. As I continue to grow, the opportunity here is I could bring another designer in. I'm not quite there yet, but we don't get the pinch point on that. We get the pinch point on fabrication and installation. So that's the areas that we're always trying to add more capacity to.
Very good. Thank you, Kurt.
Mhm.
Matt, how about you? How's your ramp worked in your operation?
You know, we've
employees?
been steady. I wouldn't even say slow because our business has doubled year over year. I started with my one jack of all trades sign maker, 25 years in the business. He was great. Again, it was during COVID, so it was a very like weird hybrid schedule. And after about a year, he decided to kind of go off on his own. And I was able to bring in actually a little bit of a younger team, somebody with only a few years, maybe 5 years experience in vinyl printing, installation and design. And so he and I grew things for a while, and then it was time to bring on another project person, as well as another designer, fabricator, and installer. So we manage non-electrical installs in-house, lobby signs, dimensional letters, vinyl graphics, vehicle wraps. And then I have 1099 installers that do a lot of my electrical work. That first employee is key. You need somebody that's going to be reliable, that knows the industry, that can help with the product mix, how things are going to come, how products are actually going to come together once they're sold or even before they're sold. So you have a good plan in place. You know, I found experience, depending on the role and depending on, you know, again, the direction your business goes. If you're more the outsource model, which again, we don't fabricate electrical signs in-house. Like I brought a guy in who had no sign experience, you know, younger guy, smart guy, about, I would say about 4 or 5 months until he got like fully up to speed and was kind of autonomous, being able to quote, to run projects, and to handle things for us. So I think it just depends on the direction of the business, what you're going to need, but I haven't found really there to be any issues with bringing folks on, getting them up to speed, and having a good, reliable team.
Very good. Thank you. All right, let's go to our next guest, Bill Stevens. If you can take yourself off of mute and share where you're from and go ahead with a question for today.
Well, again, thank everybody for your time. I'm in a town, Roanoke, Virginia, in Southwest Virginia, those aren't familiar with it. I am curious about scaling as I look to get into this industry. What is it? How did you determine the scale of your business or your goals for the first year, maybe 5th and 10th, something to that effect? And were you too aggressive, not aggressive enough? What would be your advice for somebody who wanted, I come from a very large construction background, doing very large construction projects. So these scales seem small to me, but can you give me some advice from probably a overly optimistic and possibly egotistical contractor perspective?
All right, very good. Great question. So Matt, let's start with you first. How did you come up with your plan for yourself? And, you know, how do you view the opportunity within this industry as far as its ability to scale?
Yeah, I think so. I closely followed the financial model that Signworld provided. Thanks to COVID-19, you know, you can kind of throw all that out the window because the first few months were much differently than obviously we forecasted. But then things kind of exploded for us. I mean, with the proliferation of face shields and floor graphics and social distancing signs, and being able to work through that pandemic, you know, we grew very quickly in the first year. I think, you know, your comment about coming from the construction background, you know, leverage that network hard. I think some of our biggest customers come from that industry. And although, you know, the signage scope of those projects might be a very small percentage of the overall development, it's very meaningful to a sign company, and it's great work. I mean, there's tons and tons of signs that go into, let's say, a multifamily development, and it's all stuff that, you know, you as the sign company providing for these clients can add a lot of value for. So it kind of depends on the direction you want to go. Again, we took all comers. We tried to grow as quickly as we can. The business has, you know, doubled, in some cases more than doubled year over year. And I would say for the most part early on, very closely followed what the financial models that we got from the Signworld folks.
Okay, very good. How about you, Kurt? What do you see as the growth opportunities and the scaling of this business?
Yeah, so that's perhaps the best news of all, which is, well, I guess I'd reframe it to say that form follows function, right? That's one of the oldest sayings you'll hear in any business planning environment, which is you got to decide strategically where you want to play in this industry. If it was you're going to participate with banners and you want to do core plus signs for real estate and so forth, not a bad business, and you can do that, but that's a lower value proposition than, for instance, doing channel letters. So you got to figure out functionally how you want your business to operate. And then you need to hire the people in, obviously, that will make you successful in that space. And then you have to have the courage of your conviction strategically then to invest in advertising dollars to find those opportunities. And that's where I think there is really no limit to your growth. So first 3 years for us was, 350 kind of taking over the existing business and kind of stumbling through that first year of COVID. And then it was almost 700, and then it was $1 million. So the point is, you can get rapid growth if you've got a really solid business plan. You build your personnel strategy around that. You build your marketing and advertising strategy around that. You decide what businesses you're not going to take because ultimately that's going to distract your team from getting to the business you really want. So that might mean that you are restraining your growth and giving up those projects that you really don't think fit your long-term business vision, even though it hurts at the time, in order to keep your team focused on what you really want to do. But I think you can get to $1 million in the course of about a 3-year window. How you get there and is really unique to your own marketplace and what your competitive set looks like and so forth. But it's really as much about your people and your advertising strategy and your leadership than anything.
And Kurt, just to add to that comment, what about the limit of the business? Like, do you feel like this can, for someone who has a growth to beyond the $1 million, like, do you see there being a limit to the business, or what's your thoughts on that?
I really don't. In the way I think I'd answer that is, I think you can grow geometrically in the market you're in. So I don't know your marketplace. There's Roanoke, I think Virginia. So I don't know that sort of DC Metro Maryland-ish kind of area. That can you expand? Could you have a second office, for instance? That's not in conflict with somebody else in Signworld. That's an important part of the equation. But you also can choose to organically grow vertically, right? So you could choose to have a channel expert team. You could bring a team in that just pursues those opportunities, carving off the rest of your team who's doing lobby signs, and maybe you are doing banners, or maybe you are doing sort of other projects, sort of higher volume, lower margin projects, but you're doing enough mass over there that you don't want to get those two teams to collide. So again, form follows function. What do you want to do? There's nobody that can tell you you can't do it, because this industry is so broad and so wide. But the reality is you can't do it all. So you need to decide, where do you want to play? And then you need to build your personnel strategy. You need to build your marketing strategy. You need to build your internal execution strategy, whether that's in-source, outsource. But there really is no limit. I mean, you could geometrically build this thing in a variety of ways, which, by the way, might be the best thing about the industry. Right? You can't really do that in a restaurant industry. You can't really do that in a dry cleaning industry where they have the other franchise you might be looking at. So it's very unique. It's a nice industry for that.
Great, thanks for that perspective. Fabio, what are your thoughts?
Well done, Kurt. Payback time. I like that.
No, you want me to start again? Hold on, I'm gonna start again.
You know what? I really put together what Matt said and Kurt said. It is. There's no limit. We do all. We always say yes to our customer needs. So, unfortunately, we are in Canada, which is 1/10 of the economy in the United States. So those beautiful numbers that Kurt said, we took us a little bit more time to get there. But honestly, you decided how much you want to grow. We want to. The sky's the limit. We want to grow as much as we can, as long as we can work for it and make it happen. So, and that's a great thing. As Kurt said, there's nobody that's going to limit at all. So you are 100% responsible for your growth. So that's it.
Very good. Thank you, Fabio. All right, let's go to our next guest. Hi, Lou. If you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from, and go ahead with the question for today. I see you're off of mute, but we can't hear you. All right, hi, Lou. I'm going to ask you to put your question in the chat box. If you can just type it in there, I'll come back to it in just a moment, because unfortunately, we're not hearing you coming through with your audio. So we're going to go to our last guest, Keith. If you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're from, and give your question, that'd be great. And again, hi, Lou. Put yours in the Q&A box, and we'll take a look at it in a moment.
Hi, I'm Keith. I'm just starting investigating franchising. So at the very first part, and drinking from a fire hose, trying to figure out what's going on, and wading through this scary part of trying to figure out, okay, what's next? Do I want to go forward? Do I want to stop? I don't know yet. So I appreciate you guys being very honest, and we'll see where this goes. Thank you.
All right, very good. Glad to have you here today, Keith. Thanks for joining us. I don't see Hailu's question, and I think I've gotten through everybody. So we got 4 minutes left. If someone wants to raise a hand, they can ask a second question with the last couple minutes we have. Go ahead, Bill. I saw yours come up first.
So I heard a lot about marketing, and it's very interesting. How do you determine, I don't know if it's an exact number, but how do you develop a marketing budget that's aggressive that would put you to that level? What does that mean when you say, really, I get it, marketing is the key, especially from a contractor side, the operations doesn't bother me too much. Help me out with marketing budgeting, I guess, or what, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I'm sure they can all share what they're spending on marketing today, and do they feel that that's the right amount, or if they're starting brand new, what would they recommend as a marketing budget? Because I think we heard that is one of the challenges that they all suggested, aggressively marketing early on. So Matt, let's start with you. What would you say is the right marketing budget for a brand new owner, and what are you spending today?
Yeah, starting out, we spent close to all in about $2,000 a month between pay-per-click and then developing a website and getting good presence for that. Today, I spend $1,400 a month. We didn't have phenomenal results through the pay-per-click. It was a lot of stuff that we just weren't interested in working on, so I kind of dialed that back. I do think that's important getting started, and I think, you know, just having a good marketing company that can explain to you what's available in your market from a pay-per-click perspective to how much you should spend. Like, companies can look into search volumes and keyword volumes and kind of guide you on that path. So it's going to kind of depend, I think, on the market that you're in. You know, for us, that $1,400 a month brings us probably between 50 and 60 leads per month now that we're sort of fully optimized and kind of running on all cylinders. And then we spend money on networking groups and other things like that fall under marketing too, that really just help drive the business tremendously, networking.
Very good, thank you. How about you, Fabio? How much do you spend on marketing today, and what would you say is a recommended budget for a new owner?
I spent around 1,800, has been this for, no, a little bit more, 2,200, and has been kind of steady. Like Matt, we didn't have many success with the pay-per-click, so we just do organic. But I think the best person that can help you with the marketing needs will be Kurt. So I'll defer to him.
That's a lot of pressure.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Fabio. Kurt, your thoughts?
So I would give it to you in 60 seconds or less, which is you need a competent web partner to build your website. You need a pay-per-click campaign to start. Be prepared based on, again, form following function. The form of your website, the form of your advertising should follow the function and strategy of your company. If you want to be in channel letters, be prepared to spend $80 to $100 per lead for those opportunities, and you're going to win 1 in 3. Your cost per sale is going to be $200 to $300. Be okay with that, because the project is going to be $3,500 to $4,500. So as a percentage of your overall revenue, I think you should plan to be anywhere between 10 and 15% of your planned first year revenue. If you're going to plan a $350,000, plan to spend $30,000 ish a year that first year, so $2,500 a month. Largely organized around your website, developing pay-per-click campaigns. I also happen to be on Yelp. Today, I spend about $4,500 a month. So I actually, while Matt's gone the other way and been able to optimize for organic, our market's much more competitive. I've actually throttled down. I'm spending more now on marketing than I did 2 years ago. That's about the growth machine. So, but I think having courage, having a really coherent business strategy laid out on paper, and getting a web marketing company to back behind you to create that website that looks like your business, what you want that market to look like for your customers, will help you convert better. And then you need a pay-per-click campaign that's supporting that. So be prepared to spend some bucks.
Very good. Thank you, Kurt. Owners, do you have just a few more minutes? We do have a question from Hailu in the chat box that you'd like to ask. Is that okay? Okay, perfect. So the question is, what is the best location to grow a sign business in terms of number of other businesses around you and overall demographics? So thinking about the market opportunity where you might locate your business, and do you think it makes a difference, or what are your thoughts there? Let's go and start with you first, Matt. I saw you go off mute. Go ahead.
It's an interesting question. Coming from a major market, I guess I would lean towards, a metropolitan area. But in thinking about it, I work with a lot of owners that are in non-metropolitan areas that do very well. And when I look at our business, we drive a lot from surrounding businesses, but there's opportunities that we get that are from all across the country. So I don't know. I mean, I think it depends on what your goals are and what your strategy is. I think you can ultimately be successful anywhere. I mean, I know folks that are doing it out of their house doing $1 million. So I really just think it depends on the direction you want to go and how you see the business growing.
Very good. Kurt, your thoughts?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, if you were in Yellowstone, for instance, you're in the middle of Montana and you got ranches around you, that's not a good place to start your business. But I think if you're in any suburban and or urban area, you can carve out your space. On the advertising side, I'll go back to kind of marketing side, because that's the prism I often look through. Is geofencing would be important to you. You don't want to actually have pay-per-click campaigns in Victorville, which is 90 miles from me. I wouldn't do that. So my geofencing is really around Orange County. So you can really dial in your marketing strategy to be quote unquote local clients. But that also is really good news. This industry is good in a good economy. It's also good in a down economy, because signs get moved off of buildings. A tenant will move out, a restaurant will move out. Somebody else is going to take that business again. It may sit dormant for 3 to 6 months, but then somebody else is coming in. That's your opportunity. And so don't be afraid necessarily of the geography. And the good news is that it's good in a good economy and good in a bad economy. You just got to make sure that you don't have too many competitors in your footprint. And only you'll know that by, doing your own informal analysis.
Very good. Thank you, Kurt. And unfortunately, Fabio did have to hop off. He had a customer meeting to get to. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our webinar today. So first off, a heartfelt thank you to Kurt and Matt and Fabio, who just had to depart us. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for sharing, your honest perspectives with these prospective owners. We really appreciate you both.
No problem at all.
Happy to play.
All right, very good. And to our participants, thank you for joining our session today. Hopefully you got some great insights from the owners on our call. We look forward to the additional conversations our team will have with you as you continue through this process and identifying if this is the right business with you. So with that, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your holiday week. Enjoy your time with friends and family. Travel safely if you're on the road or on a plane. And have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Take care. Bye-bye.